Friends, welcome to SPDM TV. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I watch a lot of TV. We talk about various TV topics, reviews, and general appreciation of TV past and new. You can follow me on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and serialized at MLHilty2452 to see what all I'm watching. And this week, I'm going to talk about some shows that I've been watching. There's six shows in particular that I would love to talk about. And we'll start kind of at the bottom and work our way up. And the first show that I'm going to talk about is A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. This is the Game of Thrones spinoff that the premise of this is a century before Game of Thrones, Sir Duncan the Tall and his squire Egg, or Aegon as he's known, wanders through Westeros while the dynasty ruled the Iron Throne and dragons were still remembered. Great destinies and enemies await the incomparable friends. So this is based on a George R.R. Martin series about this twosome as they walk around Westeros and get into some adventures. The whole premise of this first season is to talk about the some of the grand adventures of these two, but it focuses specifically this season on how Sir Duncan the Tall became the knight that he is, and ways that he just got into this tournament and just became the legend, or at least the start of the legend that he's become. So overall, I thought this show was perfectly fine. There were some really cool moments, like for example, there's a fight sequence that I thought was really cool, really gnarly looking, but also it was perhaps some of the most visceral fight sequences that Game of Thrones has ever put on, especially from the point of view of one particular person. So I thought that part was really cool. I really liked kind of the backstory of some of these Targaryen characters. So, for example, you've got Prince Arian, played by Finn Bennett, played by Dexter Soul Ansel, who is just phenomenal in this. I loved his character. You've got Prince Maker, and Prince Darren, played by Sam Spruell and Henry Ashton, respectively. Prince Baylor is probably my favorite character in this series, played by Bertie Carvel, and he was amazing. His performance was really great. Here's kind of some of the issues that I had with the show, though. It was a little bit on the boring side, and you know that's not necessarily such a bad thing because Game of Thrones is predicated not so much on its action but on its political intrigue. But there's not as much political intrigue in here as it is, following Duncan, who played by Peter Claffey, or yeah, Claffey. He was an interesting character, but he wasn't quite what I was hoping for in terms of a hero that we're following around, because kind of seems like an idiot in this. Okay, scratch that. Not so much an idiot. He's just very naive and doesn't understand the goings on that's happening in Westeros. So I get that. Backstory is fascinating. Just when they go into the fifth episode and they go a little bit more into his background, I found that a lot of fun and some pretty incredible stuff. Now, some of the other things that I struggled with is that this is introducing a lot of characters, and this is the same problem that I had with House of the Dragon as well, is that it introduces a lot of characters and it's trying to do a lot of great things, but the problem is that as we're introducing all these characters, there's only six episodes this season, only six. And each episode is not that long either. So that's not a lot of time for us to take care of stuff. But I think visually it looks great. I think the music is great. I thought like the fight choreography and the sequences looked really outstanding. There was a lot of standout characters with this, and it sets up a really strong premise for what's to come in the future. I think, it sucks to say that like this is probably my least favorite show of the things that I've been watching lately, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. And I think that's the beauty of television that we've been experiencing over the last couple of months, is that there's been some outstanding television that we've gotten to witness. And when you compare it to the backdrop of like what movies we've gotten so far, which there hasn't been a whole lot of like standout, really great movies yet. Those are coming this month and into next month. Television, I don't think gets enough credit for some of the shows that they put out this early on that are really great. So, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, still really great. Not my favorite show so far this year, but still really good nonetheless. The fourth season of Bridgerton just wrapped up. And fourth season focuses on Benedict Bridgerton, which I've never been a fan of Benedict. I think he's been kind of, a bit of an outcast. And like with like the second half, like the second part, or like with some of the younger Bridgerton children, I do not understand how some of them are going to find a husband. Like I really don't, because Anthony, yeah, he's got a very strong sense of duty, and Colin has, like him and Penelope were destined together, and Daphne as like one of the oldest girl, and as someone who's like meant to be part of society. Yeah, like I get why they would start with her story, and even Francesca to some extent or another. Benedict was a character that I'm like, "Ah, God, like how on earth are we going to find a character that is going to capture his attention in a way that is going to make it believable and also going to make me root for them?" Because that's been Benedict's problem throughout the course of the whole series. I don't like him as a character. So we introduce Sophie. So Sophie is played by, let's see, is she played by Yurin Ha or Yirin Ha? I really hope I'm pronouncing these right. She plays Sophie. She is a Korean actress. And I think one of the things that stands out about this season is that this is a Cinderella story. This is about two characters who are not really meant to be together because one is from like a lower class, at least ostensibly, as we come to discover that no, no, she's not. So how like the first half of this season, I bought into these two like crossing paths at random times. The masquerade ball where they meet felt magical, blah 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 blah. But the thing that really I struggled with at the end of the first part is Benedict asks Sophie to be his mistress. And that I was like, see, this is why you're a fucking douchebag, because she, like it's setting up to where he's just going to want to be with her, but then yep, he messes that up in a hurry. So the other thing that kind of happens in the first half that I quite enjoyed is that Lady Bridgerton, we're finally getting some moments of Violet rather than Lady Bridgerton. We're finally getting some moments where she is moving on, and she is starting to move on from her as a widow. She's you know finally getting it on with Lord Marcus. I thought the moments that they had together were really great. We got some scenes with Francesca and John, which I don't know. There was a part of me that was concerned about this because it seemed like something was destined to feel out of place with this. And because I'd never read any of the Bridgerton books, I don't really get very many chances to read, period. But the Bridgerton books, I guess John does die at some point. And John died. I suppose I should say spoilers for a lot of these shows, but John's death in the second part or second half of Bridgerton season 4 presents a unique chance for Francesca to find someone else, but also to give us the opportunity to feel a little bit of grief in this world when we don't get very many chances to feel grief. We have everything has just been predicated on, just finding love and or finding sex or whatever. But John's death, actually brings a bit of an interesting twist into Bridgerton because it kind of humanizes these characters in a way that I don't think the series has done ever before, which is why I kind of elevate this season a little bit above some of the others because I quite enjoyed this season because I loved the journey particularly in the second half between Benedict and Sophie, with Sophie discovering who she is and how she can fit in royally or fit into society. And then Lady Bridgerton discovering, what she wants and who she wants to become. I really enjoyed this season, particularly the second half, quite a bit. Plus, also Cho Chang, the actress who played Cho Chang, name's Katie Lung, who played Lady Araminta. She's devilish. She's that was a lot. So next season, presumably, we're going to see Francesca go back out and try to find a husband. And then allegedly next season is going to be about Eloise, which I'm all here for. But again, I'm struggling to see how anybody's going to capture Eloise's attention in a way that is going to be palatable for a lot of people. Let's talk about Scrubs. So Scrubs has been rebooted and we're going to have season 10 of Scrubs. There's 3 episodes in and it feels very much like the Scrubs of old. First 8 seasons, they're just kind of ignoring everything that happened in the ninth season. And I think with this Scrubs reboot, this is how you do a reboot. You're still focusing on the main characters, but you're introducing a lot of like secondary characters that I think are really good. I miss certain characters. I miss Dr. Cox. I miss the janitor. I miss Dr. Kelso. But when you have your core four still here, so you have JD, you have Turk, you have Elliot, and you have Carla. Even though we're going to get less Carla than anticipated, it's still really great, and it still shows that Bill Lawrence still has it. And that first episode of this season just hits you so incredibly hard, particularly with Donald Faison, who just hits it really hard with the whole thing about burnout. And I do love how they address this whole thing about I can't do this all on my own, which I think is really great. I think that they did a great job of showing that all of these doctors are older and that they're more experienced, they know a lot, but also at the same time they've got a lot to give to these younger doctors too. I am not a huge fan of the fact that they won't they for so damn long between JD and Elliot only to break them up again. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what happened with Robin and Barney and How I Met Your Mother. And if by the end of this season they get back together again, I'm going to be severely annoyed about that. But I'm hoping that JD will, continue to flourish. He's now the chief of medicine at Sacred Heart, and I think he's doing a great job. And I think he's definitely matured a lot. We're still getting some of the like flashbacks, or not flashbacks, some of the like fantasy sequences and dream sequences. And as he's struggling to get through to some of these other doctors, like these particularly younger doctors, I think it's a really great addition to the Scrubs lore and mythology. I'm I'm a little concerned about where this is ultimately going to go. I think they've done a great job of reestablishing the characters, reestablishing the hospital, and also just setting this up as like a medical show that still has the comedy, but still very much has the heart. I don't know where this is gonna go though. So I'm still excited for it, but I'm 3 episodes in. I've been very happy with the results so far. So we'll see where this goes. The next show, let's talk about Shrinking. So Shrinking season 3 has been amazing so far, and I think it's pretty outstanding to have both of these shows who are Bill Lawrence shows in right here. I think focusing on Jason Segel, like trying to get back out there in the dating world is great. They are heavily teasing and implying that Harrison Ford is probably not long for this series, and I'm devastated about that possibility. So we'll see how that goes. I think Harrison Ford has been just so incredibly great. The end feels like it's coming for him because not so much at like that his character is going to die, even though at some point they have to address that, but he's also a character who he cannot continue to practice medicine the way that he does and at the length that he does. I do like that so far. Brett Goldstein's character has been pretty much written out of the show, which okay, that's fine. I'm a little curious if they're going to bring him back at some point because I liked him as a character, but I get what Gabby's saying. Having him here feels very, 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 very out of place. Alice is going to be going off to college, so I'm looking forward to that. Brian and Charlie have a baby now, so I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to see where that's ultimately going to go. Gabby as a character isn't really doing a whole lot this season, and Liz Liz isn't doing a whole lot of anything either, even though she's still a fantastic character. And Derek's just the man. I will watch anything that Derek is in. Sean's still doing some stuff. He's got a love interest story, so I'm curious to see where that goes. Overall, this season has been really, really great, and I have loved what they've brought us so far. I'm just again very concerned about what's next with Harrison Ford's character, and also Michael J. Fox. Great, great storyline for him so far, and not so much storyline, but he's got some great cameos so far. So, and I've really enjoyed that. Industry. Let's talk about Industry season 4. Industry season 4 is very much I feel like Industry season 4 we've jumped the shark a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that because I think this show is ripe for some crazy moments. I, for one, very much missed Robert as a character. I think Robert grounds some of these characters, particularly Harper and Yasmin. And now I feel like Yasmin has become the villain for the final season, which is ironic considering that one of the things that she talked about was accountability and like, is anyone ever going to be held accountable for their actions? And the irony that Yasmin and Harper are both in positions to where they're trying to hold people accountable, I think is kind of laughable at this point. I'm waiting for their uppance to come, I suppose, particularly Yasmin with what happens at the end of the final episode. We have reached irredeemable as she becomes the Ghislaine Maxwell to, the far right politics that have kind of entrenched industry in a way that I was not exactly expecting for it to go. Doesn't change the fact that Marissa Abella, who plays Yasmin, is fantastic. The Mahala, who plays Harper, is still great this season, and they tried really really hard for me to potentially maybe empathize a little bit with Harper, but didn't work. It didn't work, which leads me to some of my favorite characters this season. Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea is great in this season, and I'm hoping that we get more Sweet Pea centric storylines. Then you have a whole slew of other characters that are just awful and irredeemable. Rishi is like has got like broken ankles and now he's going to jail. Eric is going to be on the run because Yasmin does now have this bribe, this compromising video of him with potentially a young girl, and you've got Henry Muck who is just going to take the fall for all of this. I think the storyline behind Tender, which is this fintech company, fancying itself being like a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife. It's a bank, it's a financial institution, it's all those different things. And I think where this is, really goes off the rails is just everything that has to do with Max Minghella character, which is, let's see, what's his name? His character is named Whitney. That's right, Whitney. Whitney is allegedly like a Russian asset. And I think where I'm struggling with this quite a bit is that okay, like he's a Russian asset, but where do we go from here? So I'm concerned about that. I think, for if they would have kept Max Minghella and Cal Penn together and it would have caused a little bit more drama, I think I would have enjoyed that a little bit more, but that doesn't change the fact that I don't know shit about screenwriting, so hey, what do I know? But I thought Charlie Heaton as James Diker was a little wasted as a character, but it also serves the purpose that all of these rich people just have the means to do all of these incredible things, but when the truth comes close, the bill comes due and nobody is safe. Kiernan Shipka's character, her name's Haley. She is an assistant to Whitney, but there's more to meets the eye with that. And I'm concerned about the relationship that Haley and Yasmin are going to have. So there's a lot to process, a lot to think about with Industry Season 5, which who knows when that's coming out. But I'm waiting to see what happens and if accountability is coming for any of these people. I did want to give a shout out to Toheeb Jamal, who plays Kwabena, or he's, as Ted Lasso fans know him, as Sam Obasanya. Kwabena is an interesting character because he, despite the fact that he's sleeping around with Harper, he's very talented at his job, and he's got kind of a thing going on with Sweet Pea, which I'm kind of hoping is continues because I think they're kind of cute together. It's just very curious to see where all of these characters are going to go into a final season and how they're going to kind of rein this back in because we've left the financial world. Now we're dipping into things like politics and power. And I mean, at the end of the day, isn't that where industry always, like any industry, leads to eventually politics and power and influence? So I'm still going to watch it. I still love the show, even though there's not a single likable character in this show, with the exception of maybe Sweet Pea. All the politicians are bad. Like we're diving deep into like right wing territory when it comes to politics. It's sketchy, but here we go. But the last show we're going to talk about is The Pit. The Pit season 2 has been pretty incredible so far. We've got Fourth of July weekend, and there's some concerns that I have going into the final hours of this shift. We've got, let's see, it's 3 p.m. the last episode that aired on March 5th. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a couple things that are going on here that I definitely want to know. The first is Dr. Santos. They very much glance over her cutting scars, and I want to know what's going on there. I really do. I'm starting to get very concerned for Dr. Robbie because he's making it seem like he ain't coming back. And not only is he not coming back from his sabbatical, he's kind of making it seem like he doesn't want to do this thing called life anymore. And I'm starting to get very concerned about that. I think Dr. King is going to her sister. Something's going to happen to her sister, but I hope that it's just like a surgery and she's just kind of got to relax and let everything come to a head. I'm hoping that by the end of the season that we have some type of resolution and some type of way that Dr. Robbie and what's his name? Dr. Langdon reconcile, because I'm not going to like it if they leave it and it's just going to be, no good. I think the cyber attack is going to eventually come to this hospital. I don't think it's going to be as bad as what happened to the others, but hey, we'll see. And I ultimately think that there's going to be more firework incidents. And this most recent episode, there was a patient who blew off two of his fingers. Like he had alcohol in his breath, and then the main storyline is that their parents got deported, and now the main sister is taking care of the little brother. That got me pretty good. A lot of the stories are getting me pretty good. Louis as a character, I was very sad to see what happened to him, particularly the episode where they focused on all the nurses, which I'm glad that they focused on the nurses. But when Dr. Robbie reveals that, like, hey, this guy was going to be married, but and he was going to have a kid, but then car accident and boom, life throws you for a loop, right? I want to know what's going on with Dr. Alashimi and what's her deal right now. I don't know. Something seems off with her, but we'll see. And then I am getting a little concerned that Dr. Javati is, like that most of these characters can't go analog, as opposed to them like being overly reliant on technology. And I think that Dr. McKay and a bunch of the other doctors who are handling their cancer patient, who it's very clear that this patient, she wants to die. And what are they going to do? Because the patient, her name's Roxy. She's got cancer. She had a seizure, and now the time is going to come pretty soon where it's very clear that she's done. She wants to be done. So I'm just wondering, how long is it going to be before they eventually just let her go? And it's going to be pretty heartbreaking when that does happen. But I think that's going to be the story that I think just gets me really, really good. So we'll see how that pans out. But those are all the shows that I'm watching right now. There's a couple other shows that I'm currently watching where it's too early in. Like, even though I talked about 3 episodes into Scrubs, but still I'm watching I'm watching The Beauty. I'm watching DTF St. Louis. I'm rewatching Heated Rivalry. I'm watching Monster, the Monarch. That's the one. So there's a lot of great television on right now. So I'm very curious to see how the rest of we've got about 4 or 5 months before Emmy nominations are going to be due. So I think we're waiting for something for Netflix to come out with something that is going to just knock us all on our asses, but we'll see. We got some trailers recently for Lanterns. We got a trailer for the next season of Beef. A lot of great stuff when it comes to television, so I'm really looking forward to it. But what are you watching lately? What's something that you've been watching that you've been enjoying so far? Let me know in the comments below. That's going to do it for this episode of SPDM TV. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Shout out to High Flyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you've got any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at highflyercreative.com. Check out the other shows in our network. We've got a lot of great content, so please check out the other shows and support the other members of the SPDM crew. And finally, if you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, happy watching, friends.